To order, I have first a housekeeping, a minor announcement. Our technology is not up to what it should be today. The microphones are not working, so in order, the meeting is being recorded, but we need to speak up.
What'd you say?
That's generally it. I don't think that's generally a problem around here, but we do need to speak up. The first item of business are the approval of the minutes of the meeting of September 9, 2013.
So moved.
Move it.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are approved. The second is consideration of the fiscal year 2014-2015 operating university budget request. The university is proposing the continuation of its approach to the financing of its master plan for the education of CUNY students, specifically the CUNY Compact. In CUNY's budget message, the university seeks to finance its ongoing obligations with state and city funds and its investment program through a modest increase in public funding, continued budget restructuring and efficiencies, philanthropy and tuition revenue. To address this issue, I would like to ask Associate Vice Chancellor Sapienza to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Pantaleo, and hello again, everyone.
Who are you speaking to?
Excuse me?
Are you speaking to us?
Yes,
Maybe we could get a little closer.
It almost sounds like the microphones at work.
That's right.
sure.
It sounds like the microphones.
The only issue I have is the laptop issue.
Matt sounds like he's.
I think that's why I need to stay, but can you hear me fine?
The microphones are not working, so don't use them.
Oh, mic's on, okay, I'll speak louder.
Sounds like the work.
Thank you, Trustee Pantaleo. Hello, everyone.
Sounds like his is.
Sorry about that.
He doesn't give up.
So we're here to present the fiscal 2015 budget request. Before we get into the presentation, a couple things. One is at each of your seats is the budget request document that includes the narrative of all of the programs that are included in our request and all of the tables and charts that summarize the items in the request. So that's at your table. But we're not going to go through that document. Instead, there's a PowerPoint presentation, again, that's been provided, and we're going to go through that in just a moment. Before we get into the presentation, though, I do want to point out that there has been significant consultations with all of the constituents within the university, with the University Faculty Senate, and I want to especially thank the Budget Advisory Committee of the Faculty Senate for their terrific input on the request. We've consulted with the University Student Senate, the Council of Presidents Fiscal Committee, which Jim Meiskens is the chair of, and I want to thank President Meiskens for all of his good work on that. And with all of the folks at the campuses, the VPs for Finance and Administration, and folks within the central office. So it was a collaborative process and a consultative process. And I want to also recognize our Deputy Budget Director, Kathy Abada, who's in the gallery, and everyone in the University Budget Office for all their terrific work on the budget request. So let's get into the presentation. So this year's budget request for fiscal 15 represents the 9th year that we are using the compact as our financing vehicle. And I think all of you are aware of the compact and how it works. The compact tries to leverage the resources of all of our different partners in order to fully fund our request. So our partners are the state and city, which we're asking to fund 100% of our mandatory needs, plus a portion of the investment program. The investment program are those programmatic initiatives that are included that will move the university forward. And we'll go through what those programmatic initiatives are for this year and what's included. Another partner is the private sector, our friends that we asked to help us with private fundraising through philanthropy. The university is committing to be more efficient and find restructuring and savings within its own budget to provide funds towards the investment program, and the students through the addition of tuition revenue. Before we get into what the actual numbers are for fiscal 15, while we're talking about the compact, we wanted to provide you with a little history of the compact. The first year that we instituted the compact fiscal year was fiscal year 2007. And since then, we have added a total of $342 million in programmatic investments over that time period. $229 million at the senior colleges and $113 million at the community colleges. Now, these, again, I want to point out, are programmatic investments. These are not mandatory cost increases for things like energy or fringe benefits. These are actual new dollars that were added to our campus's budget since 2007. The largest component of our programmatic investments has been full-time faculty. $83 million has been added in that category since 2007, $57 million at the seniors and $26 at the communities. And that equates to a total of 1,205 new faculty lines being added to the campuses since 2007. So the compact has had quite a significant impact since we started it in fiscal year 2007. One of the other great benefits of the compact has been student financial assistance. And in fiscal year 2014, we have carved out $10 million of additional funding towards the Student Financial Assistance Initiative. And that $10 million is also included as part of our budget request for 2015. And there are four major components of the program. One is tuition waivers, and we set aside, of the $10 million, $2.5 million for undergraduate tuition waivers to help those students who are at risk of continuing their matriculation. The CUNY institutional work study helps to supplement the federal work study program in which we receive about $9 million a year. This year we added $3.2 million to that pot of money that we get from the federal government to make more job opportunities for our students on the campus. It was really critical to do so this year because in the first round of federal sequestration, federal work study programs were reduced by about 8%. We've helped to assist with the cost of textbooks to the tune of $2.5 million. A big component of this has been the purchasing of textbooks by our campus libraries and making these books available to the students to take out on loan rather than purchase them in the bookstore. And then graduate student financial assistance, we set aside $1.5 million to help graduate students persist towards their degree. There's another component of the Student Financial Assistance Initiative that was new for this year that is going to continue for next year, and that is we set aside $300,000 to help our veteran students in returning to our campuses with financial assistance as well. Just want to point out again, talking about financial aid, that the Pell Award, the maximum Pell Award for this year is $5,645. And that last bullet point there, in the 2011-2012 academic year, CUNY administered $552 million in Pell Grants and $257 million in TAP Awards. So there's over $800 million in state and federal financial aid, 143,000 Pell recipients and 97,000 TAP recipients. So the $10 million student financial assistance program is just one small but very important component of the total financial aid package that is available to our students. And again, as we've pointed out many times, about 60% of our students attend the university tuition-free because of the Pell Grants and the TAP Awards. Okay, so let's get into the compact investment plan for fiscal 2015. The programmatic initiatives are included in our request for fiscal year 2015 mirror the board-approved master plan. In June 2012, the board approved a new master plan for the university, a new 5-year plan, and the items that are in our budget request for fiscal 15 mirror the four main missions that comprise that master plan. Mission 1 is expanding academic excellence. And the main components of this are the addition of full-time faculty, the enhancement of our ongoing mission of the Decade of Science, including the Advanced Science Research Center, which is going to open in fall 2014, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that on a future slide. Mission 2 is maintaining an integrated system and facilitating articulation. This mission is targeted to helping students acclimate to college life and to help them persist in their time to degree towards graduation. And one of the critical initiatives that's included here is the accelerated study and associate degree and associate programs at our community colleges. And again, talk about that in a future slide as well. Mission 3 is expanding access, and again, this is directly tied to student success and to the diversity of our student population. Some of the key items here are the Black Male Initiative, and we're including in our budget request an enhancement to the Black Male Initiative of $2.5 million, which will be able to double the funding for the program for next year. And Mission 4 is remaining responsive to the urban setting. This mission focuses on those things that may be different from what the university's main mission is, which is instructing students, but are critical to the university's role as a partner to the city and state and to serving the city and state. So it includes things like workforce and economic development, educating teachers, and the efforts that we've been making on sustainability and working with the state and city. Included in here, which is new for fiscal 15, is the CUNY Service Corps, which I think you all might be familiar with. CUNY Service Corps just launched in this current semester that we're in, fall 2013. We have 750 students who are participating in the program this year at about 95 different member organizations throughout the city of New York. So we're really excited about that program, and we want to continue that going forward, and so that's included in our request. Okay, so let's take a look at some numbers. So the 2015 budget request, you see on slide 8, the request broken out by mandatory needs and program requests. Those, again, is our investment program. So we start out with the 2014 adopted budget, and you can see there it's a shade below $3 billion. And you can see it broken out by our 3 main funding sources: state aid, city support, and tuition revenue. Our mandatory needs for next year project to be $118 million. And you can see that the lion's share of that is on the state side. And in a future slide, in about a minute or two, we're going to look at the components of those mandatory needs. And you can see the programmatic requests total $111 million. And you can see the components of that between state aid, city support, and tuition. And one thing I want to point out about this slide and this chart is that you can see there that 100% of the tuition revenue is going towards the programmatic requests. We are targeting in our budget request that entire tuition revenue will go towards new things on our campuses and not towards covering mandatory needs. And so that would bring our budget for next year up to almost $3.2 billion. So on slide 9, we have a further delineation of the total request. And you can see here that the total is $247 million. And what slide 9 depicts is how we would finance that $247 million, going back to the compact and going back to the skin in the game that each of our partners has. And so we're asking the state and city to pick up the mandatory needs, and we're also asking for the state and city to pick up a share of the program costs. So $17.9 million for the senior colleges, $8.3 million for the community colleges, for a total of $26 million in program costs that the state and city would pick up. The remainder of the program costs would be covered by the remaining items. The community college state aid increase of $19.5 million. We are asking the state for an increase in community college base aid of $250 per full-time equivalent student. This year's base aid rate is $2,422 per FTE. Now, we've been fortunate, and we're very grateful to the state. In the last 2 years, base aid has increased by $150 in each year to bring us up to that $2,422 rate. However, going back to fiscal year 2009, the base aid rate in 2009 was $206,075 per FTE. Fortunately, beginning in 2009, we had budget cuts for 4 consecutive years, which lowered the rate. We've gotten some of that back in the last 2 years, but we're not to the level we were in 2009. And so we're requesting a $250 base aid increase to the community colleges. Tuition revenue, again, that $75 million would all go for programmatic initiatives, none for mandatory needs. And then these last 2 items, restructuring and philanthropy. As I said earlier, the university commits to finding efficiencies in its own budget and making restructuring efforts to come up with savings. And we're asking our campuses and the central office to find $7.5 million in savings to put towards the programmatic initiatives for fiscal 15. And then philanthropy, we're asking our campuses to increase their fundraising efforts by an additional $10 million for next year, again, to fund the investment program. Okay, slide 10. So we wanted to give you some details about what is included in the investment program. So the investment program for fiscal 15 totals almost $129 million, and the lion's share of that would go towards mission 1, which is maintaining and expanding academic excellence. Our number 1 priority since we began the compact in 2007 and continues for next year for fiscal 15 is the addition of full-time faculty. And so we are requesting $53 million, which would equate to the hiring of 425 additional full-time faculty. In addition, we're requesting $15.4 million for the Advanced Science Research Center. The Advanced Science Research Center, as I said before, is opening in fall 2014. It's being built on the campus of City College. However, it will be a facility that will be open to all of our campuses, all of our faculty and students who are doing high-end research, and we're really excited about it. It's really the capstone of the Decade of Science initiative that began in 2005. Some of the other things that are included in our programmatic initiative for fiscal 15, we're asking for $2.6 million to expand the ASAP program at our community colleges. This has been a really successful program. It's exceeded the original targets that were set for it when it opened in 2007. We want to expand the program to 4,000 students by next fall. And so that's what the $2.6 million would be directed towards. In addition, we're asking for about $4 million for Gutman Community College. As you all know, Gutman Community College opened last year in August of 2012 with about 285 students. They added a little less than 300 new students this year, so now they're at about 550 students. And the plan is to continue to expand the college to get to an ultimate goal of about 5,000 students. And so we're requesting about $3.9 million for that continued expansion at Gutman Community College. Some of the other items in the expanding access area is $2 million for veteran services. We have about 4,000 veteran students at our university that need support. As I said earlier, we're asking for $2.5 million to explain the Black Male Initiative. Black Male Initiative for the last 9 years has been solely funded by the City of New York through a grant that we receive annually from the City Council. And we're asking the state, as part of our budget request, to put up $2.5 million to match that City Council grant to bring the program to $5 million. And we're also asking for $2 million for the CUNY Leads program, which is a program that provides both academic and career services to our students with disabilities. In the area of remaining responsive to the urban setting, as I said earlier, our CUNY Service Corps is included in there, and we're requesting $4 million for that, as well as $3.8 million for facilities repairs at our campuses. Okay, slide 11. Slide 11 provides the numbers to all of those programmatic initiatives by our 4 missions that are outlined in the CUNY master plan. And so you can see there, $79.5 million for mission 1, and the numbers broken out there by the missions and by the seniors and community colleges. So now let's go to slide 12 and talk about the mandatory cost increases, because this comprises a very large portion of our budget. And next year, we're projecting that our mandatory cost increases are going to go up by $118 million. So mandatory cost increases cover those items that are going to go up next year based on whether we hire one more new faculty member or take in one more student. These are the cost of doing business and how much they're projected to go up. And you can see there that the largest component of that is fringe benefits. Fringe benefits we're projecting is going to grow by $78.6 million for next year. Fringe, over the last several years, has been growing at a clip of about 10 to 11% a year. The largest growth in fringe benefits has been in health insurance costs and in pension liabilities, and we are projecting that that's going to continue in fiscal 15. We have a small increase for energy costs, and we're very grateful that that is a small number, and our campuses deserve a lot of credit for taking steps in their campus operations to bring down our energy costs. We have about $1.4 million for building rentals, and these are escalating costs at the facilities that we rent. The next line, though, you see $4.3 million for new building rentals. As our campuses grow and as we add new programs and as our capital budget continues to be compromised by lack of new funding, it's been incumbent of the operating budget to try to find lease space for some of these programs. We have $4.3 million in new building rentals at the senior colleges next year. The largest component of that is the new cinema school for Brooklyn College at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Contractual salary increments, this is another large component of our mandatory needs. $23.6 million, $17 million at the seniors, $6.6 million at the communities. This represents step increases that are built into the contract with the Professional Staff Congress. So members of the PSC move up steps, both faculty and folks in the higher education officer series. And the salary increments that are included in there, we project to be an additional $23.6 million for next year. And then inflationary costs for our OTPS budget, our purchasing budget, we're projecting to be about $8.2 million for next year. So it's a total of $118 million in mandatory costs. Okay, so next step, pending approval tonight on the Committee of Fiscal Affairs, and we're certainly happy to take whatever questions or concerns you might have after we're done with this slide. We will present it to the full board on November 25th. Once approved by the full board of trustees, the request will be shared with elected officials, and that's why it's always so critical for us to present the budget request at the November meeting. Because the governor is going to be presenting his executive budget in January. In addition, on the city side, the mayor presents his preliminary budget for fiscal 15 also in January. So we want to make sure that our request has gone and been approved by our board in November so that we can get it in the hands of our elected officials and they can see what our increased costs and, more importantly, what our programmatic initiatives are for next year. So we'll be sharing this data with the State Division of Budget and the City Office of Management and Budget as well. The state is facing a deficit of about $1.7 billion for next year. When you take that in the context of that the state budget is about $135 billion, it's not a big lift for the state, and certainly the state budget condition has been much improved over the last several years. A few years ago, the state was looking at $15 billion deficit. So the fact that they're at $1.7 billion is a good thing for the state of New York's, fiscal climate. The city of New York for next year, they're projecting a budget gap of about $2 billion, and the city's overall budget is about $70 billion. So that's a little bigger lift for the city. But again, we're not projecting at this time any additional cuts to our community colleges. We do have the maintenance of effort provision that provides some protection for us. And of course, there'll be a new mayoral administration beginning next calendar year. And so it'll be interesting to see how that budget plays out on the city side. So again, you have the budget request document. We went through some of the key numbers, and I'm happy to take any questions or concerns that any of the trustees may have.
I'd like to kick off with a question. On the contractual salary increments, I understand that 23.6 million are already agreed to step increases. But you have we have an expired collective bargaining agreement where, if there is any increase, if they're assuming there's ever an agreement, if there is any increase, where does that come from?
Even when the contract has expired historically, the step increases
Right.
still continue.
I'm talking about the across-the-board type increases.
Right, those are not built into the request. Historically, the state and city have picked up the costs for any collective bargaining increases. So
And they
those
usually
are
do
not
a
included in the
separate pay
request.
bill, not as part of the budget.
Okay, that was really what I was getting at. Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Professor Martell?
The 15.4 million for the Advanced Science Research Center, that's operating money.
That's all operating money, correct.
Is there any other money going to be allocated to fitting out that building?
The equipment costs will be covered through the capital budget for all of the high-end instrumentation that they'll be purchasing for the building. The 15.4 million that's included here, as you pointed out, is for the operating costs, for the hiring of the faculty that are going to work in the building, for the hiring of the support staff, things like stationary engineers and safety officers, and for any of the ongoing operating costs, energy and things like that.
And you may remember, some of the capital costs are going to be funded by selling of 80th Street.
Right. What's our success rate with the state funding the mandatory cost increase?
Historically, the state had picked up 100% of our mandatory needs. For the last 2 years, our fringe benefits, which is the largest component of our mandatory needs, has been funded. So that's certainly a good thing since it's the largest component. Some of the other components, utilities, building rentals, have not been funded by the state the last 2 years. And so while we certainly have concern about that and continue to talk to the state about our concerns, we've been able to provide funding within our budget and find savings and accruals within our budget to cover those costs for our campuses. But certainly you raise a good point, and we do have concerns about that going forward. And it's something that we have continually talked to the state about and will continue as part of our lobbying efforts for fiscal 15.
Because, quick math, if I did it right, about 63% of this investment comes from the state, comes from new state money.
Correct. Correct.
And one last question. We just got this document, so I didn't, but I'm looking at page 9 at mandatory needs of 108, and then I'm looking at page 12, mandatory needs of 118. I'm missing something.
You're looking at the actual documentary or,
Yep.
or the PowerPoint?
The document, slide, page 9.
You're looking at the PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint, yeah. Sorry.
Well, on page 9, the mandatory needs here is $108 million because some of the community college state aid increase of $19.5 million, that $250 base aid for FTE increase, would be used to cover some mandatory cost increases at the community colleges. That's the difference. About half of that 19.5 would go for mandatory.
And that's
No,
what,
I
that's
think
what $10 million.
the question I think he has is that there's one that says 118 and the other says 108. That's his
Right.
question.
Yeah, no, I
And that's
understand.
the 10 million is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
The mandatory needs, the total mandatory needs is $118 million. 108 would come directly from the state and city, and the other 9.5 or so
Comes
would come from
indirectly
the base
through
aid
the-
increase from the community colleges,
Which is from the state also.
which is also from the state, exactly.
Right. Thank you.
So 100% would come from the state.
Trustee Lancaster?
And one last thing, how do you get something into the mandatory category? Thank you. I mean, we've seen things like the Blackmail Initiative come up year and year and year and get funded. When and how do they shift over into a more permanent funding source?
Well, we're hoping, the blackmail initiative, on the city side, now we do have a commitment from the city that that will be a permanent funding source, because that $2.5 million that we get from the city council, we've had to lobby for every single year to put it back in the budget. It's been funded on a one-time basis, but we do have a commitment from the city that will be a permanent funding source. And that's something that we're gonna be looking for in the November financial plan that the city is gonna be issuing later this month. But really, the decision on whether something's a mandatory need or not really has to do with the fact of, are costs going to go up no matter what we do in terms of adding additional faculty or adding additional students? If they are, those are mandatory costs. Now, something that we've included as a mandatory cost for the last several years, and we don't have any this year, but when we open, with the exception of the ASRC, but when new buildings have opened on our campuses, we consider that to be a mandatory need, because we have capital funding, we've built this new building, and now we have the costs for operating that building. To us, that's a mandatory need. And so it's just costs that will increase for the cost of doing business. That's what the mandatory needs are considered.
Thank you. Trustee Bill?
I'm sure that in other documents it's probably there, but what's the measurement of success of these? The mission to expand faculty, I think is what we all want to do. But is there some correlation between that expansion and retention and graduation rates, or what's the measurement of success? And similarly, and I think Jay may have sent the blackmail initiative, which you mentioned has been, was the result of a study that was done 9 years ago, and we're now going to look at to see for the 9 years of investment, what is the measurement of success of that investment, and whether we should be continuing it at this level, whether we should be asking for more money. But before I could feel comfortable, I'd like to know what the measurement of success is, and we're doing that with the Blackmail Initiative. But similarly, for some of the other programs, I'm just curious as to what is the measurement of success, and why do we ask for the additional money?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different measurements. Certainly, in a category like full-time faculty, there are a lot of different things that could be measured. The challenge that we've had with full-time faculty is that our campuses have done an outstanding job in adding new full-time faculty lines over the last 10 years. And I give the campuses even more credit, because not only have they added over 1,000 new lines in the last 10 years, but consider that included in this 10-year period was an early retirement incentive in which we lost about 350 faculty. So not only have they added new faculty, but they've hired enough faculty to make up for that early retirement incentive loss, and have added new on top of that. So our campuses have done a great job hiring new full-time faculty. However, we've added about 20% in terms of the total number of faculty that we've had in the last 10 years or so, which is, I think, unprecedented in public higher education throughout the country. However, our enrollment has gone up by 27% over that same time period. So we've lagged in terms of the enrollment growth against the faculty growth. And so the percentage of instruction taught by full-time faculty has gone down over that time period. And so that, I think, is a measurement that one can use. Some of the other things you pointed out, retention rates and graduation rates, are other measurements that could be used to see how effective that is. Part of the performance management process, in which the presidents are measured every year, includes all of these measurements: retention rates, graduation rates, percent of instruction taught by full-time faculty. So something like that, I don't think there's one measure that can be looked at. But certainly, I think not only the data that we have, but the research from throughout the country in public higher ed shows that full-time faculty is one of the main ingredients that's needed to help students in their time to degree. Some of the other measurements that you talk about, the Blackmail Initiative, I think it's great that we're doing an evaluation of that program. From what we've heard from our campuses, it is very successful. But I think you're right. It's right to do a measurement on that. The ASAP program, all of the data shows that that's been a tremendously successful program. The target graduation rate after 3 years for that program was 50%, and we're doing well over 50%. We're doing about 55% graduation rate in 3 years in that program. So all of these programs are measured, and certainly from the university's perspective, we like to make sure we get a good return on our investment and are targeting our investments to those programs that we think are working. And so that's part of the evaluation.
Okay. I just think that, you know, depending upon which committee you may or may not sit on, you may or may not have more knowledge of some of the success of the programs and of others, and as other institutions are being called upon to sort of show their outcome measurement, the conversation about outcome measurement at the board level would be helpful to some of us, I think.
No, that's a great point, and that's part of the reason why, in putting together a request, we try to do as much consultation as possible with the faculty and with the students and with college presidents, so that we make sure that the things that they think are critical and the things that they think are working are included as part of our investments.
Just one question. The $3.9 million that's allocated towards academic advisement, how many lines does that come out to?
I don't know how many lines that would equate to, and I want to point out that the entirety of that 3.9 million would not all equate to additional lines. If we're fortunate enough to have enough funding in our budget for next year to give out the 3.9 million to the campuses, those decisions would really be made by the campuses. But the reason I want to point out that not all of it would be equate to full-time lines in terms of academic advisors is that we feel, and again, through consultations that we've done, the university community, I think, feels that academic advising could be improved greatly by additional investments in technology in academic advising. And so that 3.9 million, some of that will be used to increase technology to help academic advising. Again, those decisions, if we do have that amount funded, will be made at the campus level. And some of it will be additional advisors, and some of it will be enhancing technology to help our students in terms of their academic record.
Thank you.
Alan, where do we stand with the technology,
Fee?
whatever
First,
CUNY First?
we're probably 2/3 of our way through. We're now the largest instance of PeopleSoft in the United States. We're on budget, semi on time, but definitely on budget. And we'll be finished probably in about a year and a half.
So when you turn it on, it's going to work.
As so far, it hasn't the campus we've done. We had
Mad, right?
2 Vanguard campuses, Queens and Queensboro, which was a bear. And, I will always appreciate what they're willing to go through as the vanguards. But since then, it's been a lot smoother. But everyone gets registered, and it gets turned on, and the project. But these are administrative systems. It kind of goes on forever. We'll make it more and more user friendly over the years. But you turn it on, and people can register and do the things they got to do.
So we will be seeing it before the 2nd Avenue subway, right?
For sure. Well, you can see it in about 2/3 of CUNY. You can see it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I would move consideration of the fiscal year 2014-2015 operating university budget. May I have a second,
Second.
please? All those, first of all, any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? At least through this committee, it passes. Our next item, thank you. Our next agenda item will be deferred for about 30 seconds. I'd like to welcome and introduce David Rosenberg. David, I understand this is your first meeting on the committee?
Yes.
Why don't you just take a minute or so and tell us what school you're in and what you do?
I'm from Brooklyn College and president of student government and delegate to the University Student Senate, and I'm applying to law school for fall 2014.
Well, best of luck with everything. We're desperate for another lawyer, right? Wish you luck with that. And welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Tuition, next item is tuition differential for Masters of Professional Studies in Branding and Integrated Communications at the City College of New York. This is a resolution proposing that the City University of New York adopt a revised schedule of tuition charges in the form of a tuition differential for the Masters of Professional Studies in Branding and Integrated Communications at the City College for first-time students effective with the spring 2014 semester. The proposed tuition increase of $1,800 per semester for full-time and $365 per credit for part-time resident students and $205 per credit for full and part-time non-resident students is necessary to strengthen the services to students and improve the general quality of the Master's Professional Studies in Branding and Integrated Communications at City College. The increased tuition revenue will be solely used for the support of the MPS in Branding and Integrated Communications program. The New York State Education Law, Section 6206, allows the City University of New York to charge differential tuition rates as long as there is no differential among like degree programs. The college will continue to provide financial aid funding to assist eligible New York State residents to afford the increase in tuition. The only MPS in Branding and Integrated Communications program at the university is the one at City College. I will move this. Before we do so, are there any questions or discussions? I have one question. I don't know who to ask it of. Matt, I guess it's you.
Sure.
Am I reading this right, that the 365 per credit hour for resident students, is that correct?
That's the current rate. That's the current rate for resident
I see.
part-time students.
It's still less.
Okay, that's, you can, the answer is, it is still less for resident students, even with the increase. This gives the increase number, not the total number. Okay. With that, I would move approval of the tuition differential. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? Yes.
The question is that, in particular with this tuition increase, what exactly is it going to cover that this program requires the differential tuition based on every other master's program in CUNY?
As we stated in the resolution, every time we've done differential tuition in one of our master's programs, we've always required that 100% of the additional revenue goes towards that program, and that's reinvested in that program. And so that is what City College is committed to doing for this program as well. This is a brand-new program. It just opened up this fall. They have 30 students in the program this year. And college has informed me that 90 students applied for the program, so they took about a third of the students that applied, so they do have good interest in the program. But it's a costly program. You know, when you look at some of the other master's degrees programs and the costs of faculty and of equipment that's needed for this program, it is an expensive program. It's a new program. And so investments are needed in order to provide, you know, the type of program that's required for a degree like this.
And then this would have it effective for next spring, which means that it wouldn't be approved until the board meeting at the end of this month, which means students would be finding out about this increase a few weeks before registration, if that.
The college has had consultations with the students, and so the students that are in this program should be aware of the proposed increase.
Because
those consultations have been done.
The Graduate Student Council at the City College hasn't heard about this until the agenda went out for this meeting. So this is pretty quick in terms of timeline to be able to put forward a tuition increase, not have much discussion about it, then just put it up for approval to go in effect in a matter of weeks. Wouldn't you think so? In terms of getting this out to students, to know that it's not an insignificant increase, especially for students who are in a public institution and don't necessarily have the funding. Graduate tuition assistance is very low. Are there not other ways to fund the additional services for this program without necessarily putting it in this semester, wait, have some more discussion about it, and see what else can be done before we go about raising the tuition? This is still a new program.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, the college did have consultations with the students in this program. There are representatives of the college here, and I'll speak to them after the meeting and make sure that those consultations with the Graduate Student Council at the college take place as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. We now go into, we have one action item on the subcommittee for investments, and that is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of September.
Chair Penley, I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt you. Just to say, we need to close out the fiscal committee meeting and go into the investments
Oh, thank you.
subcommittee. I'm sorry.
We can do that, because we have no items, action items coming out of, other than the agenda item, I'm sorry, the approval of the minutes. So I will move to adjourn the Fiscal Affairs Committee, and then, if that's approved, we will go forward to
Second.
the Subcommittee on Investments. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned, and we'll now start Subcommittee on Investments. We have one action item on the Subcommittee for Investments, which is the approval of the minutes of the September 9, 2013.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. We have no action items for the, other than that, for the Committee on Investments. And with that, I will close the Fiscal Affairs Committee and go into executive session for the Subcommittee on Investments, and we will not be returning from executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.